I can actually change the structure of my brain by talking or speaking to myself in a positive manner. It's just that you have to take off the layers, like peeling an onion or peeling a cabbage, and get to the core of your greatness, get to the core of who you are made to be, who you are created. I'll say that my life has a purpose. As I said, none of us arrived here accidentally, regardless of the circumstances surrounding your path. Know that you do have a purpose. Your life has a mandate, and you mark it.
Your purpose a lot of times comes along the path, but if you're not on the freaking path, you're never going to get there. Stop wondering what your purpose is and just make a decision that you have a purpose and pick one and remind yourself about it every day. Okay, welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III here with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And I'm joined today by a guest. I think you're going to really get a lot out of this. His name is Dennis Mbogori, and I think what we're going to be covering today will be something critical for your mindset. So, Dennis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
I'm glad we were able to get our calendar and things lined up because you've got some great, powerful stories. And before we get going, I want to give everybody a little bit of an introduction for you, at least, where you're coming from. You were born in Kenya, moved to the U.S. during college, and Dennis was inspired, which was what kind of attracted me to the conversation. Dennis was inspired by John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and he's gone through some programs with him. He's developed some of his own. He's a coach, a motivational speaker, a writer, and he's the author of Affirm Your Greatness, Harnessing the Power of Positive Affirmations. So I'm really excited to kind of get into it with you today. But Dennis, maybe what you could do is start by giving us a little bit of your origin story. Tell us about your story about coming to the U.S. and what sparked your passion getting into personal development.
Sure. Thank you, George. I was born in Nakuru, Kenya, which is in the Rift Valley region, or in Kenya in East Africa. Basically, I lived my early life all the way through second year of college. And then my father decided to relocate the entire family to the United States in 1999. So we arrived in the middle of summer, and it was July of 99, and we found ourselves in Georgia. So this was my first time in the United States. I'd traveled in Africa. I'd been to Tanzania, Malawi, South Africa, but this was my first time in the West.
Wow.
So we arrived here in the middle of summer. Everything is blazing hot, so it took time to adjust to the weather, and then there's the whole culture shock. People couldn't understand what I was saying. I couldn't understand what they were saying. But
Wow.
as we were both speaking English. I guess with time I was able to adjust, and we were able to communicate. I figured that, along the way that their main complaint was I was speaking too fast, so I learned to slow myself down so that at least could get some understanding. So once we arrived, now it's settling down, trying to figure out, okay, where do we start? Where do we go for work? Where do we get groceries? And so it was a whole adventure, trying to figure out, okay, first of all, we are moving from Kenya shillings. Now I'm dealing with the US dollars. I'm dealing with all this, trying to figure out what is a dime and a nickel and
Wow.
and something interesting that I'd like to mention, George, is for most of us migrating from Africa or other countries, when you go to the shop, your first thing to do is you start computing the price according to your native currency.
Right.
So I'll pick up a loaf of bread, and I'm converting the $2 loaf of bread into Kenya shillings, and I'm like, man, this is too much. So I put the thing back and trying to price things, but it took a while to realize, well, I'm now here. So my mindset should be here. I leave the conversion to the people at home and learn to do things here. So with that, finally settled down, got my first job working in a grocery store part time, and I was a telemarketer. Believe it or
Wow.
not.
Yeah.
And this
Do what
was
you got to do, right?
at the time when we were saying what was it? A long distance phone call service.
Yeah.
I was working for MCI Onecom, and I would get on the phone calling people at night, and there was this ad on the TV featuring Michael Jordan. So that was our pitch. Hey, have you seen this ad by Michael Jordan? He's
Wow.
representing MCI Worldcom. And then people hang up on you because you're calling them at dinner time.
I mean, talk about struggle. Like you're literally trying to figure out language. And this is really important. And I'll tell you why, Dennis, it's so important for people to hear, because you're trying to understand language. You're trying to change your mindset. You're trying to get a job. You're faced with all these obstacles as you come over here, which is a pretty overwhelming thing. Most people are just struggling with the day to day. You've got to completely change everything you're doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what shifted you, or what event happened that you felt kind of was a point that shifted you into this space of a career around personal development?
That was a couple of years later once I enrolled in Bible College, Beulah Heights Bible College in Atlanta. And one of the courses that we had to take was a course on leadership. And our textbook was the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And so we went through the whole semester going through the book. I think we were doing like a chapter a week. And at the end of the book, the edition that I had, it had a contact information for the John Maxwell organization. They said if you're interested in starting coaching or want to start a speaking career, write us an email on this address, and I will get back to you. So I let it sit for a little bit. As I told you, I enrolled finally in 2016. That's when I was getting certified. That's about 10 years after I graduated college. But the thing had been reoccurring in my mind.
In your mind.
In my mind. And I was watching John Maxwell. He had this a minute by Maxwell, a 1 minute video clip on YouTube. So I would watch those. And every time I would watch it, I'll get intrigued. I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. If you have listened to him, he's just very calm and very fatherly. And, in 1 minute, he was able to communicate a lot. So, and at the end he had a call to action at the end of the video. If you're interested in enrolling for a coaching program, click the link in the description. So I eventually did 10 years after graduation.
Well, and let me ask you, because I'm
Mhm.
curious, it's gelling in your mind the whole time.
Yeah.
And you obviously were on a path of some personal development yourself. Was there a reason that you chose to take action then? In other words, was there a turning point that you decided, I've got to do something? What made you take that action at that point 10 years later?
Uh, well, it was twofold. I graduated with a biblical studies degree, basically a theology degree, and getting a pastoral assignment here in the US was hard by itself.
Difficult.
It was difficult because you go to a church, they start all these questions. Well, where are you from? What do you want to do? How long are you going to be here? It was a challenge and a half. So just put that on the side and I focused strictly on the motivational route, on the speaking route. So I continued digesting a lot of John Maxwell material. Signed up for Audible, consumed a lot of Audible books, especially on not only for John Maxwell, a lot of things to do with motivation, a positive mindset. Listen to Grant Cardone and um,
Was it also though, because like you read that book obviously in college, but
mhm.
was it because you were using it for yourself personally, as well as that it was so exciting to you to kind of get into the motivational and personal development space? Because it seems like in your life, when we were having our conversation, it was something that you naturally felt was helping you in your life, but you also wanted to do as a career as well,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. It was, and there was one law that actually stood out. The law of big more, the law of momentum. And
Yeah.
for some reason, even after I finished the book, I will keep getting back to this because I felt like, okay, now I'm here, but my life is not moving. I'm not having the
Mhm.
momentum. So I will keep rereading it. What is this law of big more? Why don't I have momentum? I've graduated from college. I'm not getting a job. Well, I have a job. It's not, you know,
Yeah.
what I would love to do. So I would keep circling back to it, and I'm like, I need some momentum. So I get looking and researching, watching YouTube video after YouTube video, listening to audio books. And of course, you will know this, but, as the more material you consume, it gets into you and start changing and transforming slowly by slowly.
Yes.
So eventually, now come to speaking of the book, in 2020, COVID hits, and everywhere the world is shut down. And so for a while, I wasn't going to work, and I will get these newsletters in my email box. Some of them were junk mail, but there was one that popped up. Do you want to write a book? Click this link, and then they sent out like a book template. That was the origin for the Got Goals book. They basically sent a book template, and like, okay, these are the steps to do. Fill out the template, put your introduction, and then publish it on Amazon through Amazon KDP. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, wow, all right. So I did my thing, uh, looked for quotes that resonated with me. Of course, I had to write the introduction and give part of my story and my journey, especially concerning leadership and motivation, and the whole issue of goal setting, and why they should, consume the book. So eventually, we got the book up on Amazon. Well, after getting the cover designed on Fiverr, I did a lot of googling.
Well, you had to
Okay,
figure it all out. It sounds like,
yeah,
yeah, you did it
yeah.
all. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, where do I get a cover design? And so get the book done, put it on Amazon. I got there for a little bit, but thankfully, thank God for friends. You know,
It
they
started to grow.
yeah,
Yeah, it
they
started
they
to
they
grow.
they feel pity on you. They're like, okay, I'll get a couple of books for
You know
myself
what's
and for
interesting
friends.
though, Dennis? I gotta put because I want to dig into the book here, but I don't want to
Sure,
pass over something I think the listeners need to hear,
sure.
and that is this idea of momentum. Because I think that there are a lot of people out there consuming the thing that they want to become, like
Hmm.
personal development and knowledge and motivation. And I think and this is the reason I wanted to have you on the show is I think you did and you teach what most people don't do. And that is that you can be consuming all these things and wondering where it is. But the key thing is you have to make a decision and take action. And what you
Yes,
did, for example, back when you clicked on that link and went into the John Maxwell training program, or when you clicked on the link for the book and decided to do the book, you didn't. I'm going to make a really big point about this to the listeners. You
sure.
didn't know what you were doing. You didn't have any plan. You just took action. And
Hmm.
it was through that action that the momentum started to build, right? Because
Yes,
you didn't
yes.
even know how to design a book cover, let alone
Yeah.
do motivational training, right?
Yeah,
So it's that
yes.
action.
Yeah, it was a leap of faith, to say the least. You know, compiling the book, making sure the format is right, getting the cover design, and then getting it on Amazon, and then having to figure out, okay, well, what do you do to market the book? So you're going on Facebook, you're Googling, uh, and as I said, friends come in handy. You're like, okay, I have this book on Amazon.
Promoting. Yeah.
I'm, uh, Buy a copy from me, and like, okay, I got good goals. I get a copy. So I had, I became like those who sell CDs from the
Yeah.
back of their cars. I'll have a couple of books, and like, you want a copy? And so, yeah, basically that's how this whole journey started.
Well,
And
and
then,
Dennis, I think it's important for people to know that I say and you say take action to
mhm,
get momentum, but the thing I love and the reason I emphasize this on my show is it's the way you think
mhm,
that gets you to take action, not just the
true.
action. So you, obviously coming from Kenya, not knowing what to do, you've always had this mindset of you'll figure it out. You'll
Yes.
figure it out. And it's that that got you to take action and do things. So I think that people need to really recognize that it's the way you think. You didn't have the answers, but you knew, at least from what our conversations have been, you knew you would figure it out, right?
Yeah. You make sure you research, look for information, find resources, talk to
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah, because the answers are out there. If John Maxwell is publishing all these books and other people are publishing, so you just have to find someone to ask. That is not selfish with the information anyway. And research and figure it out, figure out how to do this thing, figure out how to publish the book, figure out how to getting a speaking engagement. I'm so glad to be on this podcast. It's a milestone for me.
Well,
But
you've done a lot to, I mean, let's be honest.
mhm,
We do thousands of interviews in our magazines, and I have lots of different hosts, and there's a lot of people that request. In fact, I was going last night and looking through. I had 100 requests to be on our podcast just in the last week. But you had kind of sorted through the crowd, and you had there's a lot to be said for if you're listening to this podcast, having the right mindset of you'll figure it out. That's a real big key. So now let's pivot, and I wanted to ask you, in the time we have left,
mhm,
why did you choose the topic of positive affirmations for your book? And
mhm.
because a lot of people are skeptical of affirmations, and they've heard it all the time. I say those
Yeah,
things all the time, but it doesn't help me. Like,
yeah.
why did you pick that topic? Help me understand a little bit about positive affirmations in your book.
Thank you. Well, it kind of relates to my background and my upbringing. Um, Back home in Kenya, growing up, I was the firstborn son, two other brothers and a younger sister. And growing up, and, I don't think my parents intended this, or especially my father. When you don't do things right, tell you, they'll speak just in passing. And, I don't think you'll amount to anything. And uh, when you get to hear those kind of statements, they kind of seep into your subconscious.
For
You
sure.
you strive, you graduate high school, but there's that inner voice that rings in you. You'll still not achieve what you think you'll be able to achieve. So there was that voice of self doubt, um, a feeling of inferiority complex. And when I had time to sit down, I was like, I keep seeing all these quotes, and I just read a book by Zig Ziglar, and he had a book of quotes, and relating to affirmation and changing of mindset. So I was like, well, I'll become my own doctor and diagnose myself out of this, negative thinking and
I
neg-
love that. Diagnose yourself out of that. I
yeah,
love it.
negative self-talk, and just so I dove into the whole affirmation thing. I did the research and the science behind it. I was intrigued as I was writing the book and as I was researching it. They were talking about neuroplasticity, um, and that how the affirmations basically change and mold your brain physically. You're like, wow, I can actually change the structure of my brain by talking, speaking to myself in a positive manner. It's very easy to say, oh, I've gained weight, I'm losing hair. You know, we, there's something about human beings, sliding towards the negative. So, as I said, I had to diagnose myself and say, okay, I need to change the trajectory of my life and trajectory of my speaking, of my words. I'm a preacher on Sunday, and I tell people how to live their life and everything. But then come Monday morning and I'm going to work, and then I'm like, oh boy, it's Monday. have to go and deal with this
Yeah.
boss. So there's this blanket of negativity that just falls on you. So I was like, no, this has to change. And so I started researching and read about neuroplasticity and, the power of affirmations and how speaking them to yourself, looking into a mirror or putting sticky notes on the wall and repeating these statements can actually change you and change how you live your life. So
I love that though. You hit a couple of really important things I want to kind of emphasize. One is
sure.
that you I love the fact that you decided to just diagnose yourself and make a change. That's kind of cool. I haven't heard that before. But the other thing is that I think you're right. I think that affirmations is not just some personal development type of topic. It's literally a technique that will change your brain because neuroplasticity is a real thing. If you are struggling with negativity, if you're struggling with self doubt, if you're struggling with those things, you're not just saying something that's not true. You're literally programming your mind, and your mind is your best tool unless it's working against you. So
Yeah.
I love the science in addition to the personal development aspect. But I wanted to note for the listeners, because you probably forget you've done this. Your title really appealed to me because your title is not just positive affirmations, the power of positive affirmations. It's Affirm Your Greatness. And I think that speaks to the fact that you're not just trying to become something great. You're already something great.
Great.
You're
Yeah.
just trying to have the
You're trying to
tools that
peel
you
the
call to be
onion.
it, right?
You're
Speak to
trying to
that for
peel.
a minute.
Yeah. The title Affirm Your Greatness, it actually implies that you have greatness in you. It's just that you have to take off the layers, like peeling an onion or peeling a carpet, and get to the core of your greatness. Get to the core of who you are made to be, who you are created to be. If you're of a faith persuasion, uh, because I hear this as a lot. God doesn't make junk. God doesn't make junk, and that means you're, regardless of how you are born into this world, whether the circumstances were good or bad, there's a reason you are here. There's a reason you are alive at this time, and you have a purpose uh, to fulfill. So it is up to you to dig deep and find out, why am I here? Uh, What am I good at? And what legacy can I leave on this earth? What is your footprint that you want to leave in this place once you leave? And so that people will, in 2025, there was this preacher from Africa called Dennis, and he said this and he said that, and it really changed my life. So each and every one of us, George, myself, and you, our listeners, there's something in you. There's a story in you that is just waiting to come out. You may not become a motivational speaker, but I guarantee there's a story in you that you just have to dig deep, get rid of the negative self-talk, and find what makes you what makes your heart sing, what makes you jump in the morning, whether it's Monday or Wednesday or Friday. People always say, thank God it's Friday, but in reality, we should thank God whether it's
Every day.
Monday or Thursday.
Yeah.
You should, jump out of bed with excitement and with a zest for life. And so Affirm Your Greatness tool, a handbook basically to remind you that there's greatness in you. You just have to search it out, bring it out, and put it to the forefront.
I love it. I love it. And I loved some of the sections of the book. I haven't been completely through it yet, but I'm kind of a quick reader, and I loved it because you have, putting your, the science behind it, crafting your affirmations, integrating it with your life, overcoming limiting beliefs, your health and wellness and finance. So there's a piece for all this, but I want to note to the listener also that, and I say this a lot, but it's how individuals like Dennis think that is the key. And, you do things, I think a lot of times in life, you and I very much alike, we do things out of just habit now, but consuming books, learning and getting knowledge. When you wanted to do whatever you wanted to do in every one of these areas, you went and learned about it, figured it out, tried to go. So you were teachable. You've applied affirmations. You've took action. These are not the solutions. These are the results of how you think. You think a certain way. You decided to program your mind. As a
True.
result, you're consuming books. You're doing all these things. So I really love that as an example because success leaves clues, right? So I
True.
want to ask you this about the book because we'll put a link in the show notes for the book so people can go check it out. But what do you think? What do you think is something that someone can do if they're really struggling with self doubt right now? Because I'm sure they've heard start doing affirmations, but at a real high level, I wanted to ask you personally,
Mhm.
what do you say to someone that's really struggling with self doubt, or maybe they just feel like they're overcome right now with life? What's the first step they should do to start down that path of positivity and growth and momentum, right? Where
Mhm.
does someone start that's really overwhelmed right now? Do you have some suggestions for them?
I'll say that my life has a purpose. As I said, none of us arrived here accidentally, regardless of the circumstances surrounding your path. Know that you do have a purpose. Your life has a mandate, and you mark it. And so you 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 have to talk to yourself and say, I'm I am somebody. I do mean something. I do have a purpose. And regardless of the situations, whether it's bills that are not paid, whether it's, I don't have a job or you have one and, the boss is just on your case, just remind yourself, I do have a purpose. I I- I have a vision, whether it's writing a book, whether it's running a marathon, and just focus on that purpose and put it up on a vision board if you have to, or if you have a smartphone like I do, I will write these things
Yes.
in my
Yes.
notepad, and just to remind myself, like when I was writing the book, I was like, I have to get this book done. It took a it took a while, but when you have something that constantly reminds you, or if you have a friend that you confide in and you share your vision with them, and whenever you're having that negative slump, have someone to get you back or on track, and tell you uh, life is going to get better. You can do better, and
I love that. In fact, you said something that really kind of, I just wrote it down because I really liked it. There's a lot of people out there struggling to find a purpose, right? They're struggling to say, do I really matter, whatever. And I love your point about make a decision and tell yourself that you have a purpose. But I think as I look at your story, you also did something pretty significant is you created a purpose, meaning you decided to engage in becoming an international speaker and an individual that went through and certified with John Maxwell. You also decided at one point to write a book. You learned, you grow, you did it, and you went. And what I find with a lot of people I talk with is that your purpose a lot of times comes along the path. But if you're not
mm,
on the freaking path, you're never going to get there. So making that decision. So I love, so I'll tie it together here. When you said, tell yourself you have a purpose, and I would add to that, pick a purpose. Just
mm,
pick something to
yeah,
start working on. And
sure,
and if it happens to be, like in your case, something in a positive arena, a book, whatever it is, sometimes that purpose in the short term is what leads you to your purpose, where now you can look back and say, I'm a speaker, I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, I'm an author. And now you're helping people
true,
individually because of your story. And so I really love that idea that, stop wondering what your purpose is and just make a decision that you have a purpose and pick
yeah,
one
yeah.
and and remind yourself about it every day, right? Do you have any, I'm gonna ask you this question because I ask most of my guests. Do you have a set of daily rituals that you normally have, like where some people journal and meditate and some pray, whatever. Do you have kind of daily rituals that you consistently focus on?
Sure. And in the morning, of course, before I get out of bed, pray, uh, get my day started. During the day, I'm listening to inspirational music when I'm not listening to podcasts or audiobooks. Uh, so I actually very rarely listen to like talk show
Yes.
or news, because there's a lot of negativity
Correct.
in the
Yeah.
air. So
Me too.
I try to saturate myself. It's audiobooks, uh, inspirational songs, um, devotionals when I get home in the evening. You know, uh, as I speak with my wife, we have dialogue and Bible study. So that's basically my regiment.
I love it. I
Listening
love
to
that.
inspirational music, listening to inspirational um, talk shows or podcasts or audiobooks. So
Well, I love that because that's a pretty consistent thing for myself as well. And so, well, listen, I've enjoyed having you here. Before I let everyone go, where is the best place to have individuals connect with you? Would it be your website at dennismotivates.com?
yeah, that will be the perfect central area. So dennismotivates.com, and
Great.
you'll find everything that you need.
I love it. I love it. I've been on the site. You've got a lot of great inspirational blog posts and content. So yeah, what I'll do, guys, if you're listening to this episode, I'll share the links in the show notes to his social media links. You can connect with him there, or if you want to just connect with Dennis and just follow the great messages he's putting out on his site. He's got morning affirmations, affirmations for all kinds of areas of your life, content, and articles. So go check it out. Dennis, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I hope that those listening will share this show. Do us a favor, get this message out. If you've got a story, if you've got something you're overcoming in your life, we can all be inspired by the messages that are out there. Is there anything you want to leave them with before we take off, Dennis?
The people that you surround yourself with matters. When you're dealing with negative self-talk, surround yourself with positive people. Yourself with people who will speak greatness into you, even when you can't see it in yourself. Have someone to speak it into you, whether it's the audiobook, whether it's a podcast, or a physical friend that you can talk to. Have someone to dialogue your life with.
I love that. I love that recommendation because we are by nature a lot of times leaning, as human beings towards negative. And I love that suggestion. Surround yourself with the right people that will speak that into you. You already have greatness. As I mentioned, at the end of all of our shows, I believe that you do have greatness inside of you. And I believe it's never too late to start creating the life that you were meant to live, that your best life, but you've got to do something about it. And so take action, share this show, hit me up on the Daily Mastermind on Facebook or Instagram. And look forward to talking with you again tomorrow. Once again, this is George Wright. You've been hanging out with Dennis and George on the Daily Mastermind. Have a great day.